I recognise there's a quorum, therefore I call this meeting to order, opening as per usual with a prayer. Heavenly Father, grant that we who would seek to serve you may have the wisdom of your Spirit, the guiding of your hand, and the grace to serve together for the prosperity of our city, the Gold Coast, through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Saviour. Amen. Let's be upstanding for our national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Please be seated. Attendance, I'm advised that Councillor Pierre Young is on his way. Condolences, Councillor Tozer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to deviate a little bit from normal protocol here, but Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are warned that the following condolence motion refers to a deceased person. And I want to commence by respectfully acknowledging the Kumba people and other First Nations people of the broader Yugambeh language region today, who are the traditional owners of the land in the Gold Coast area on which we meet, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are here or watching the stream today. I move that a motion of condolence and a message of sympathy be passed to the Dillon family on the recent passing of Dr. Graham Dillon, OAM.
Seconder, I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Graham Dillon has passed away, and there will be a memorial service next Wednesday at Coomera Anglican College at 12:30, where the community's memories of Dr. Graham Dillon's contribution to our city will be heard, and I'm hoping that the whole community can rally around a man who was a champion of First Nations interests across our broader region. Whilst I didn't know Dr. Dillon personally, I do know his family relatively well, and Dr. Graham Dillon's park is in Wurrungary in Division 9, and it's a place of great memories but also acknowledgement of his contribution to the city. More personally, I wanted to share that in my division, like many places around Australia, the interests of First Nations people haven't always been advanced. In fact, there's been tragic and horrible stories about early days of Australia that are sad and horrible and tragic. And I think the first step in working towards making life better for everyone who lives in Australia is to acknowledge when bad things happen and try to take steps towards healing that. And one way we can do that is by celebrating and lifting up amazing men like Dr. Graham Dillon and celebrating his contribution to First Nations people and First Nations interests in the city. I hope next Wednesday councillors can join with me at Coomera Anglican College to celebrate his life, and I want to encourage the family to continue their good work, carrying on that legacy over many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, I put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried. Adding to the condolences, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Belden Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Worcester, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill. Oh, and Councillor Hamill. Okay. We move on to next item, Mayoral Minute. It's about sustainable waste management, recycle. Can you put the motion on the screen, please? Councillors, I move the motion that's on the screen. There's a long preamble that comes with it, but in short note, in recent community consultation shows residents are keen to do more on the recycling front, and of course we should support them in that quest. Councillor Worcester, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to ask a question, but plainly that's most appropriate after your contribution, in case my question is answered. Thank you.
All right. So this Mayoral Minute will pave the way to improve the recycling journey the city has already commenced on by improving the use of local recycling materials through our procurement policies, creating investment and employment by attracting recycling industry to the Gold Coast, making it easier for residents to improve their recycling practices, particularly those residents in strata title areas. For question, Councillor Worcester.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Totally support your push here. Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask you a question around the scope of the report, just to see whether some of the opportunities that I've had bubbling in my own mind may be contemplated by officers as they prepare their report. Mr. Mayor, the first one concerns medium and high-rise development where plainly people are not recycling enough, but I'm also concerned that they're not taking steps or won't be able to take steps to manage their organic and food waste because having 3 bins is practically impossible. Incinerators, which we've talked about in this committee, give us an opportunity to capture organic waste and deal with it in our wastewater treatment system. So while it's not recycling, it is also reclamation. And I just wonder, Mr. Mayor...
I will ask the director to encapsulate those comments and have it in the report to address that. But further to that, my disappointment, I didn't join 10 Cent Tom at the function there. He's really showing the way on the recycling. Can you just, you were at the function there, can you highlight of the event for me?
Yeah, look, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, as we know, the state government introduced some time ago a Containers for Change scheme, which allows community groups to earn some funding through the collection of containers, which are deposited at state-approved depots right across the city, right across the state. Containers for Change have created a bit of an opportunity for social enterprise to spring up, and one Robina local, 10 Cent Tom, and his mother Carolyn have embarked on not only driving recycling rates across our city, but also to provide opportunities for those living with disabilities to gain meaningful employment. And much like the Endeavour Foundation arrangement we have at the Reedy Creek Waste Transfer Station, for example, this scheme has given Tom an ability to build a business and build a future for others like him. I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, because I know you've been a supporter of Tom's. You know, there are 2 popular Toms, I suppose, in the area, which was acknowledged at the function, but also Councillor Taylor, who, although Tom is not his resident, has recognised the value of Tom's work and took it upon himself and Councillor Taylor's fiancée Sam as well to host a thank you event for Tom and his supporters. So here's an example of a sustainably thinking Gold Coaster wanting to do more, and I suppose your Mayoral Minute is a response to that need in the community. So thank you very much for that, Mr. Mann. Just last question, if I could. Recycling is great. Love it. Let's go for it. I also wonder, when you do have further discussions with the director, We could also have a look at how we can remove contaminants from landfill as well. I know, for example, LED lights contain a lot of hazardous materials, solar panels as well. We don't have a way of recycling those, and there are many of those in the city. So perhaps when this report progresses, the director may respond to those issues as well.
What I'll do is I'll ask the director that any additional input that he wants early on in the report, I'll circulate an email to all councillors, and you know, if we want to just catch up quickly for a workshop informally to give you viewpoints, that would be good. The more heads in the space, I think the more beneficial. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and I totally support your motion there, but I'd just like to say too, we have to show by example as well, and our beachfronts still don't have recycling bins south of Burleigh, so, and that has come up in the survey, and I get contacted about that. And
Mr CEO, let's get that done. After this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, councillor, I'll put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carried, unanimous. Councillors, the next one is a relatively short motion that the existing high-performance freestyle BBX partnership between the city and Oz Cycling at the Gold Coast Sports Precinct be extended up until Paris 2024 Olympics. And we all know, you know, that the Gold Coast is a natural home for action sport, like freestyle BMX, and it was great to see Logan Martin winning a gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics. After doing so much of his training on the Gold Coast, I believe we can win many more action sport gold medals in Paris and Tokyo, like in Paris, and some of our local kids, they're going to be proud to have a go at this, and I commend to you that we extend that, and I think we can install a freestyle BMX at Carrara, and it's in steel, and Logan was saying to me that he can teach me to do a backflip, and but only over the swimming pool I'll do that. But councillor, it's a simple one, and we can get going on that. And all right, councillor, put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carried, unanimous. Mayor's report.
Go to the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Huh?
Confirmation.
Oh, confirmation of minutes. Beg your pardon. Thank you, Joe. I should pull this out. Confirmation minutes. First up, councillor, any correction? No? Someone like to move for adoption? Councillor Hamill, second. Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Okay, now we move to item 6, Mayor's report. Councillors, on Wednesday 24th November was a roundtable lunch, Collier's Residential Developers Luncheon, and everyone's got together. The consensus is that there's great optimism and confidence for investment in our city, and getting a different insight. We had 4 people there, Matt and Ez and David and myself, giving our thoughts on the matter. And our next one is Destination Gold Coast AGM. We've got Paul will be with us shortly in presentation, and first up, thanking Paul for his wonderful 17 years. I'll say more about that later in the meeting. Congratulations to Adrienne Readings on being appointed the new chairperson, and looking forward to working with her. And also congratulations to Clark Kirby being deputy chair. And so more on that later. And you can see Councillor, I think Councillor William Owen Jones and Councillor O'Neill, and you can see Councillor Pauline Young was also there. Official opening of the GC 2018 Legacy Display at the Carrara Sports and Leisure Centre at Carrara. It's wonderful, and good to see Minister for Sport was there, Honourable Sterling Hinchcliffe, and it's wonderful to show that. I did say there that without a successful 2018 Commonwealth Games and the sports accord, Brisbane wouldn't be on the map to bid for the Olympics, and everyone understands that. As guest speaker, Heritage. Yes, Councillor Tozer.
I thought I might just add to that. Last night I played basketball at Carrara Centre. I play in a social basketball team, and it was really quite surprising that display, all the basketballers walking in and out at the end of the game were actually looking at the display. So I don't think there's actually definitely like common knowledge of it, but it was attracting the attention even of people who were just going in to play a social game of basketball. So it's a really good contribution. I just wanted to say as a punter at 8:30 at night playing a basketball game, it was really great to see that line up, and there was actually people watching it, even though they came to do something different.
It's quite massive.
No, Mr. Mayor, I did not win to answer Councillor Owen Jones. It was a terrible loss.
Okay. Councillor, if you have a chance diving through or doing sporting activities there, have a look. You'll be so proud of it. And the other thing is, there's not just some donation items were donated to that, and it made a good piece, and it's got a great panel for 2032 as well. So anyway, I thought that was quite funny. So very enjoyable. Thank you very much, Councillor Tozer, on that. Guest speaker, Heritage Faith Church, and was all good. I thank and thank you for Pastor Sean Schmidt for the welcome. And next one is Mano's Business Lunch. Councillor Taylor was there. Basically, they want to know what's going on regarding Gold Coast Roadmap to Recovery, and Russell Morris was there, the real thing. That was wonderful. That's the one. Launch Gold Coast Beach Bar, yes. So we've got this Saturday, it'll be open. And I mentioned to Bob East that we need the community consultation cabana there. So I'll be there working.
Mr. Mayor, could you let us know if you need a hand?
Yes, I will. Wheelchair access beach matting. I was there with Councillor Pauline Young. I think this is about the third one we've done together. And we had life member Dave Zemick. Unfortunately, he broke his neck in the surf, and he's in his 70s, and we're able to, untested, on his wheelchair, motorised, and took him all the way down. And I did say, we haven't tested it. How are we going to get it back up? Because it's pretty heavy, and we stood there for a long time, so I can see him sinking. And so we got him back. But it's the kind of he gave a great interview on the news and how wonderful it is there, and it's good to see Surf Life Saving life member of Mermaid Beach there in a wheelchair using it, and we all know Councillor Pauline Young's also a life member of Nobbies, and it's one of those things. And the mat is recyclable plastic. It was built from that, so great action, accessible and inclusive action plan at work. Future Gold Coast Forum. I was that's just the other day. Okay, I think we got a table there. Councillor Caldwell, Bowden Lumsden, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones there. Anyone else were there? Anyway, I thought it was insightful. I think it was a consensus there, the disappointment that Lord Mayor Adrian didn't pick the Gold Coast position on the Olympic board, but let's see what happens. Councillor, I move that the Mayor's report be welcome and noted. Second to Councillor Gates. All in favour, show hands. Against, motion carried. Clarification, members? Any clarification? No. Business arising from the minutes. Councillor Owen Jones.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not too sure if it's exactly business arising out of the minutes, but I was just interested if the Premier had an opportunity yet to reply to your request for the postcode information in terms of the vaccination rates for the city?
There's no reply. Yep. Otherwise, you would have all got it. Yeah, I know. We all think it. I'll follow that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Vorster.
Sorry, because I know it's the last meeting and we want to keep it brief. I just wondered whether there's any opportunity for us to perhaps reach out to the federal government, because the administration of vaccinations attract a Medicare rebate. And if the state government's unwilling to provide this breakdown, I just wonder whether it can actually be provided by the Department of Health federally.
I will look into that, and might be that I'll follow up with the Premier first. And if I can get that from Queensland Health, then they've got the data.
Yeah.
So all they have to do is just cut and paste. Councillor Jones.
Mr Mayor, I think that's a great idea, and in fact, you might be able to write to all 5 of the local, state, federal MPs to see if they can help the city.
I shall do that. Not a problem.
Sorry for the interjection.
All right. We'll get on with it. Okay. Councillors, so that's business arising. That's done. Presentation. We have presentation recognition service to Destination Gold Coast, and we've got Paul here. Mate, you want to come in just so you can hear it a bit easier? Just before I pulled you up, I've got a couple of words to say and embarrass you. But we all know that just last week, Destination Gold Coast annual general meeting, we farewell Paul from his role as chair. 17 years at the helm, and as Gold Coast Tourism, and from since then, since the AGM, I have to say that I've seen that you had no less than 4 other events, including yesterday. Can't help but think it's a bit of a Johnny Farman farewell tour. You keep coming back, which is wonderful. But on a serious note, it shows the passion of the man for our city, for tourism, for aviation, and for everyday Gold Coasters. And he spoke eloquently at the official farewell about the love for our city, his passion, and of course the love for Megan and his twins. And I know Paul will continue to play a real role in shaping our city as we march towards 2032, not as a competitor, but on other matters. His golf will no doubt improve. It's got to. But on behalf of all the councillors...
Talk about taking a swing.
On behalf of all the councillors, past and present, and on behalf of the residents of our great city, we owe you a great debt, Paul. And thank you very much, and please join me in congratulating and thanking Paul. Take a seat. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and councillors for having me today. It really is an interesting time because I've been invested in the city for 17 years. I first as chair, but I've been invested in the city since 1975 when I first came to visit, when I was working for Ansett. And I can remember driving up the highway thinking, how good is this place? The only regret I've got is that I should have bought half the land between the airport and the city. But look, it hasn't been a job, it's been a privilege. It's been an honour for me to serve the city for 17 years and see it grow. It's not about me, it's about us. I never use the word I, it's all about we and us. And I've been fortunate to be part of a good team. And I've had great support at home. I listened to Greg Hunt yesterday talking about he's going to be a father and be a better husband. Well, I need to spend more time, particularly with my beautiful twins, who start uni next year. One's going to be a nurse, ambulance driver, the other a doctor. He'll be able to pick me up, put me in the ambulance and take me to her to get looked after. But I've had a really special time, and going away with the mayor on visits to try and get more business. One of the funny things was that we were in Bangkok trying to get AirAsia Thailand to fly here, and the mayor thought it would be a good idea to get a tuk-tuk. Anyway, he got in the tuk-tuk and I couldn't get my leg cocked over the edge to get in, so he had me by the scruff of the neck. I preferred a taxi next time, but there's been several things that have happened. One, I was really privileged to be given the Citizen of the Year in 2019. I had a letter given to me in 2016 that the Mayor wrote, which said that I've done more for tourism than anyone in living memory, which I'll cherish. Thank you. And then today to get the certificate is a real honour. And, I'm a working class kid who got lucky, met the right people, worked hard and got where I got in very senior positions in aviation. I'm still working at the airport. They managed to keep me on, still running the marathon. It's interesting because I've been chairman for 2 years and we haven't had a marathon yet because of bloody COVID. But and then I'm helping Darryl with the Titans, and also I'm chairman of Sanctuary Cove. But just to come back, it's been an absolute privilege and an honour. I'm really happy to have Trish, come down here and run the business, and Adrian taking over as chair. She'll do a great job. She deserves the opportunity. And I've got a couple of other things that people have asked me to look at. So I just want to say to you, Mr. Mayor, and to the councillors who have been, and some of you more than others, been good mates over the time, and trying to get Herman to ring me back. No, he does ring me back. He always rings me back. But look, it is a privilege, and I just want to finish by giving you a little bit about Destination Gold Coast. We've gone through a huge metamorphosis and change. We've introduced 3 significant events, being a full governance review of the organisation, a full corporate culture review of the organisation, and a full workplace health and safety. And Trish has managed to secure already 3 very senior people that are going to head the business with her, and a 4th one hopefully will be appointed shortly. But we're in good shape. Coming out of the pandemic on the 17th of December, we're back to 140% of domestic aviation seats. So that's 40% more of domestic seats than we had pre-COVID. So it will bounce back, and it's going to bounce back very hard. But so we're in a good space, and I feel good about leaving right at this time. My most difficult job is to get up of a morning, read the paper and not ring Trish or ring Adrian and think, well, they're running the show now. But can I just say, I'll still be around. I'll still be doing whatever I can to help the city. I love the place. It's the future for my kids, and I want them to be here with me and see the city flourish, because it's a great city. And I keep saying, don't call it the friggin' glitter strip. It's the Gold Coast, and we should be very proud of the Gold Coast and keep developing it to be the Gold Coast. So thanks for everything. Thank you.
No, you'll be right there.
He's a young guy who keeps on saying hello to social media.
All right.
You gave Alan a shout out.
All right. It's times like that, it goes to show the spirit of the Gold Coast, and Paula exemplifies that. And also my shout out to Alan in the gallery there, mate. Thanks for coming there, yeah, Alan Laws. Another good Gold Coasters. And, okay, now we go down a peg, conflict of interest. Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just this morning, Mr Mayor, I was asked to meet with a consultant about a future project for Coomera, which is associated with bringing a state-of-the-art healthcare precinct to Coomera to complement the future Queensland Health Coomera Hospital. I had
Councillor
received...
Gates, can you just pause for a second? Just that it's my fault. I didn't do the vote on the council
I'm
formally
sorry.
expressed. No, it's me, and I was just caught by the emotion. And councillors, I move that the council formally express its appreciation to Mr. Paul Donovan in recognition of his unwavering dedication and service to Destination Gold Coast and the city. Second, Councillor Gates. Let's put it to a vote. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous. Councillor Gates, back to you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm seeking Council's permission to meet with the consultants who are involved with bringing this possible health precinct to Coomera. So it's UPS, Mr Mayor, who've asked to brief me on the matter. I don't believe there's been an application lodged at this stage, but in order to feel comfortable about a meeting, I'm seeking Council's permission to be involved at this point in time. Once the application is lodged, quite clearly if there are other consultants involved that represent a problem for me, I'll bring that to the attention of the Council. But UPS donated to my election campaigns in 2014 $1,850, 2015 $1,850, and the 2016 amount of $1,850 was refunded in full, Mr Mayor. And that was because I became aware of the new conflict of interest provisions, and I thought that would allow my participation. That's not been the case without a
declaration. Can you just check on the
declaration.
screen that the numbers are correct?
Yes, the numbers are correct, Mr Mayor, but I'm seeking to stay to meet with the people because of the fact that this hospital precinct will be a wonderful thing for Coomera, and I think it's important that I know what's going to happen there.
Yeah. All right. Councillor, procedural motion time. I'll just go to our city solicitor. Just a brief one to insert the reason far and remote, or what's the best?
Through you, Mr Mayor, in relation to this matter, I think that we could acknowledge that while Councillor Gates has a conflict of interest, that she's uniquely placed as the divisional councillor to participate in the matter, and that would be sufficient.
Okay. You get that? Proceed your motion.
Yeah, happy to, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Caldwell's moved it. Seconder, Councillor Vorster. All right.
And if Councillor Gates needs any help from the former representative of that area, I'm more than willing to offer it.
Yeah, I think such a big project, it'd be good to participate on that. All right, anyone want to speak against the motion?
Can we just check the wording of the motion, Mr Mayor? Sorry, just once that screen's disappeared. I'd actually like to word it slightly differently,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Despite the councillor's conflict, because she is uniquely placed as the divisional councillor to be involved in the matter, and yeah, as the divisional councillor. Yep. And that contribution outweighs any perception of conflict that may exist.
You good with that, Councillor Vorster? You can remain the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone speak against the motion? The motion to you, all in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Petty, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Barlamson, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Councillor Gates did not vote. Motion carried. So now we move to committees. 11.1, Transport. Councillor Pauline Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I move that the report of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee held on Tuesday the 30th of November 2021, covered by recommendations 1 to 6, be received.
Seconder, Councillor Taylor. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Councillors, any items you wish to deal separately? Councillor Pauline Young.
6.3, Mr Mayor, just to
6
speak to it.
6.3?
Yes,
Let's
please.
go to 6.3. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At the last transport meeting, we had a very comprehensive report on the state of the transport network 2021. And as we all know, we're a maturing network with increasing demands on our multimodal transport network. And I think we would all acknowledge that in this report, the overall analysis and improvements in the real-time data that we are now starting to receive, rather than historical data that's based on the census or based on other information supplied to us, and quite often it's Councillor Vorster that brings it up. The real-time data is what we need to be receiving. And with the team that actually delivered this report this year, and I believe there's some new quite new members in our data team, that we are actually getting information that's going to help us as councillors when we come to the budget deliberations later on in the year. And we're given the opportunity with our annual visits from the director to raise any concerns, to make our contribution, to ensure that we've at least got on the table what we're looking at. And I believe that this real-time data is actually now assisting not just our as individual councillors, but also the whole department. So I think the report that came forward is giving us that information, and we'll be able to make really sort of well-informed decisions when it comes to our budget deliberations. So just congratulations to that team, and especially the new young members that have joined for such a comprehensive report this year.
Okay, so you moved that the council notes the content of this report?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Seconder, Councillor Darren Taylor. Does anyone speak against the motion? You want to close further? You're right.
No, I'm happy with that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. Any other items you want to deal separately, councillors? Back to Councillor Pauline Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I move that the remaining recommendations of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Taylor. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr Mayor. We now go to Lifestyle and Community. Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I move that the report of the Lifestyle and Community Committee meeting, which was held on Tuesday the 30th of November 2021, covered by recommendations 1 through 11, be received. Thank you very much.
Okay, seconded, Councillor Bale and Lumsden. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. I'd want to pull out 7.5, Palm Beach Aquatic Centre. Basically, the budget has gone up quite a bit, and I just want to say to you, I'd like to put a procedural motion in there that that this matter be dealt with at the next council meeting. Basically, I've got all the costings. I want to take my the opportunity during the consultation period to go through the scope of the intended change of scope of work. I had a brief look of it, but not enough time. And if there's chance that we can make it better value for money, but still delivering the project in a timely manner, I spoke with the director, and that it won't hold up the project, but it just gives me the opportunity to ask questions during the consultation period. Councillor Worcester.
Thank you very much. Mr Mayor, would you have an appetite at all to bring it to a future round rather than council meeting?
I'm happy with that.
And then that way it can go through committee again.
Yeah, more than happy to do that. I change the motion that it's a procedural motion. Just Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Happy to second that while we're at it. But I just wanted to support your motion because I think most of us would remember the path that you helped Councillor Lacastre deliver after taking a close look at what was proposed there and the savings that were made. And more relevant was the Green Bridge, where we got a really decent reduction in the costs associated with delivering that project. So if you've got an appetite to have a look, why would we say no?
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Just a couple of things, and it might come back to go. I can't find any savings, but at the very least, I've really went through it. Councillor Castro.
Mr Mayor, as Councillor Gates has just brought that up, just for those councillors who weren't around at the time, I think we're very fortunate to have two great engineers in this organisation, being yourself and Mr Elton Twine, and you picked up that footpath, had a look at it, and for those councillors who weren't here, what Councillor Gates is saying, you looked at that, the whole thing was totally redesigned, and I think we brought it in at a third of the cost. It was a substantial saving for the city, and everyone thinks the footpath is magnificent, and it is, and it's very well used. So, thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I'll be going that far on this one because some additional scope is wonderful that take the opportunity to have a community centre, which is an increase in scope and all that, but there are some tweaking there, I believe. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, could I ask the Director, with this extra time, is that going to impact on the presenting of this project? Because as you know, we've been waiting a long time, and certainly if there's any cost savings to be found, I know that you'll find them, Mr Mayor. But I'm just worried about the time frame because, as we know, every day things are going up, and if any delay is going to have an impact on that.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So, Councillor McDonald, no, I think one more round will be fine. We've got that much time in terms of actually just having another look at the project, and I think if it goes to the next round of committees, I think that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Vorster, you're happy with that motion there, if you can see it?
I think I can see it. There we go. It was on the screen there.
You've got to be quick, man.
I know. Quick.
We just want to see the
okay.
motion.
Sorry.
What's going on?
Yeah.
What's happening?
The next one's on the screen.
I thought we had it, but
So we did have some better wording that was just there a moment ago. That
yeah, we'll wait for it to come back. Meanwhile, Councillor Owen Jones wants to say a few words.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, we attended a session yesterday about the Olympic Games and legacy, and I think that this has potential to form part of that, and it might be that Adrian is able to assist the city in securing funding as part of his advocacy for the Olympic Games, because this is where people will train and it's a legacy for the future. And I think it was pretty clear yesterday that the majority of the Australian swimming squad will be training in southeast Queensland, and if we're all being honest, they'll be training here on the Gold Coast. So it may also be an opportunity for us to get some early funding from as part of that advocacy, Mr.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll focus on the scope of work and the budget there to make sure we've got value for money, and the tweaking at the committee level, if you can use advocacy for Olympics 2032, etc., for joint funding would be wonderful.
We want our share of the pool of funding.
That's it. That's, how are you going with that?
Inappropriate meeting conduct.
Councillor Worcester, you're happy with that motion?
I will stick to my lane. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
All right. And the motion on the screen, you're happy with it? Now, who moved it? I moved it. Who seconded it? Councillor Gates did? Good. Put the motion to you and face your hands. Against? Carry. Unanimous. Something to do at the Community Consultation Cabana. Take it down there. Councillor Gates.
Mr Mayor, could we deal with 7.4, please, for a declaration?
Yep, we're going 7.4.
And if I might speak to it, Mr Mayor, at the meeting of Lifestyle and Community, I became aware of a possible declarable conflict of interest. A declaration was made, however, I was absent from the room for the entire discussion and did not participate in the vote. Today I'm seeking to remain in the room. I have had no involvement with Robina projects at any time since 2016 and am unaware of their involvement in this application. However, I have been informed this may be an entity associated with the Robina Group, and I'm declaring receipt of a donation in an abundance of caution. The name of the person I received the donation from was Robina Projects Proprietary Limited, and my understanding is that that is an entity associated with the Robina Group. The amount received was $1,250 on the 6th of the 9th, 2016, and I'm seeking permission to participate in the decision.
Okay, Councillor Worcester.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move a procedural motion that Councillor Gates may participate in the decision despite the conflict, because the interest is minor and remote, and that the party, so I'll just give our Minute Secretary a moment.
If I might just add, I've made a slight error. It wasn't an application, it was an acquisition. So my wording was...
Yeah, all right, we'll amend that in a minute. Just to finish with the motion, I think.
Yeah, so despite the council's conflict of interest, because the interest is minor and remote, and the party does not stand to make a gain or suffer a loss as a result of council's decision, and so a reasonable person could not form the view that there is a conflict with the public interest. Full stop.
Okay, just before I go for the seconder, we'll go and adjust or correct the declaration.
It was just the word application should be acquisition.
acquisition. Okay, seconder, Councillor Peter Young. Anyone speak against that? Put the motion to you.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to draw the mover's attention to the fact that he's drafted it to include that there's no loss, but part of the discussions were actually in relation to a financial in-kind contribution by some related entity to this donor, and maybe we should just reflect on that.
Yeah, sure thing, Mr. Mayor. Plainly, we're dealing with a closed item, so I'm not going to ventilate anything which may prejudice the public interest. But speaking very broadly, Robina Group, which has been identified in Councillor Gates's declaration, has indicated to city officers through the report preparation process that they would be willing to make a contribution toward the establishment of a playground at this location should council resolve to secure tenure. So I don't regard that as them suffering a loss. Plainly, they wish to make it, and someone acting commercially wouldn't make that offer.
I think it was more important to see if there's any gain or loss to the councillor, and there's no connection there. That's where I went. That's fine. All right, Sri. Anything we need to tweak there?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm comfortable with that, and I think the important issue is that the Robina Group that Councillor Gates has made a declaration in relation to isn't the landowner, and the matter that we're dealing with is an acquisition, so I think that's the compelling part.
All right, it's clear. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Barr-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? And Councillor Gates did not vote. Motion carried. Might as well deal with this item. Councillor Vorster, move.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Seconder, Councillor Caldwell. Anyone want to speak against? You want to close?
Mr. Mayor, simply to point out that every time we go through the budget setting process and we strike separate charges, there's an expectation in the community that we use the funds that we collect for the purposes that we claim we're collecting them for, and that's always been the case. It will continue to be the case, and for residents in this part of the city, as far afield as Mayoral, but also in central Robina, they will see the benefit of the investment that they make in rates. I can't wait for this deal to be executed so we can talk more specifically about it, but I think it shows that we do put a premium on lifestyle in the city. Thank you.
Okay. Councillors, I'll put motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Unanimous. Any other items? Could you note, Councillor, it was unanimous, but note that Councillor Gates only voted once.
That's okay.
Councillor Peter Young.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I need to make a declaration in regard to item 7.6.
We're going to 7.6, councillors.
It was a closed session item, Mr. Mayor. My declaration appears on
the screen.
The screen, yep. And it is that I am a personal friend of Mr. Peter Cardona, who's the chairman of the Nerang Community Gardens Association and vice president of the Nerang Country Paradise Association. And I'm also a personal friend of Mrs. Kathy Cardona, who's the secretary of the Sheila Shack, and both of those entities have presence at Country Paradise Parklands, which is the subject of the report and the recommendations made to council. And me revealing Country Paradise is not contrary to the confidentiality of the report, because that was identified in the recommendations openly. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So continuing with my declaration, I'm seeking consent of the council to participate in the voting and decision making on the matter, despite that conflict, because neither of those organisations will derive a benefit or suffer a loss from the result of council's decision, and my representation of the broader public interest in the matter overwhelms any conflict. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Procedure motion. Anyone wants to have a crack? There it is. Councillor Caldwell moved. Seconder, Councillor Vorster. Anyone speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Allen Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bell-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? And Councillor Peter Young did not vote. Motion carried. We might as well deal with this item. Move the item. Councillor Peter Young. Seconder, Councillor Tozer. Anyone want to speak against? Would you like to close?
Body of work presented to us by the officers. I appreciate their fast movement on it, and I hope that we are successful in our bid. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
The greenest council in all the land. I put the motion to you.
Some would say.
Some would say. Put it to you, councillors. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. Councillor Peter Young voted in the positive. Any other items, councillors? Councillor Peter Young?
Declaration in regard to item 7.2, which is the bushfire hazard mitigation service delivery model.
Okay, go to 7.2.
My
declarations there.
Declaration should be on the screen. And I'll read it to you, Mr. Mayor. My circumstances have changed. I was a volunteer firefighter with the Guanabara Fire Brigade. I'm now the chairman, and I've recognised that change in my register of interest, but declaring that to you now openly. Chairman of the Guanabara Fire Brigade, a fact disclosed in my register of interest. A reasonable person might form the opinion that my holding of this position is in conflict with the best public interest in a matter in which council is to decide the best practice for management of its bushfire risks and responsibilities. The related parties, Guanabara Fire Brigade, and the nature of their interest is that volunteer fire brigade members are relied upon in the case of planned mitigation and bushfire fighting activities. Mr. Mayor, I've studied the officer report in detail, and I'm seeking the permission of council to participate in the decision making. I don't believe that the discussion or recommendations made in the report relate directly to the voluntary work undertaken by volunteer brigade personnel, and I don't believe that my brigade is any more or less impacted by council's decisions than any other brigade or indeed members of the public. Thank you.
Okay. Procedural motion there, councillors. Move, Councillor Tozer. Second, Councillor Vorster. Anyone speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Allen Jones, Councillor Gates, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bell-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Motion carried. Could you put down Councillor Peter Young did not vote. Councillor Vorster?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I move the item, please, just to speak briefly to it?
No, it's already, isn't it?
No, we've had to deal with...
Oh, yeah, okay. Yep. Move. Second to Councillor Tozer. Move, Councillor Vorster. Over to you, Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, as you're well aware, our present corporate plan would see our city achieve vegetation cover in excess of 50%. For all of those who would say that we live in a concrete jungle, well, those comments belie the reality that we are a very, very green city. But those green assets do carry with them some risk, and it's important that as a city we manage that risk as far as possible, not only because when fire strikes there can be environmental outcomes, bad ones, but when fire strikes there can be huge human and social costs as well. Now, the reason why we're in this position today, Mr. Mayor, is because the state government resolved to change its relationship with our local government. Before, we had a partnership and an engagement with QFAS, which city officers would say, and I'm going to repeat today, was the gold standard. And it should have been the approach that the state government took with every other similar local government across Queensland. But much to our chagrin, and after our extended protest to the state government, we've been forced into a position where we have to take a fresh look at the way we manage bushfire risk in the city. This is a very, very, very fraught topic because the stakes are so high. That said, city officers have put together an amazing report that makes the best of the situation that we've been handed. And it actually affords us an opportunity, Mr. Mayor, to look at managing risk in better ways. Although this is a confidential-ish report, what I... It's in the Local Government Act 2032. I'm a time traveller from the future. It's much better, much better. Mr. Mayor, what the community can take heart in is that we've been in a position to secure a lot of corporate knowledge from those who have been on the front line working in our city. So we hope that we will not skip a beat. So in summary, Mr. Mayor, I wish that we were not in this position, but city officers have done an amazing job. And I think in your capacity as chair of the Local Disaster Management Group, you can feel supported by the policy work of the committee and today hopefully with the council as well.
Okay, good. Councillor Tozer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Division 9 has a large expanse of that green area that Councillor Vorster spoke to, and there are just short of a dozen different rural fire brigades that serve in the area that I represent, and that good work, whilst Councillor Vorster didn't mention it in much detail, we will continue to have a very close working relationship with all our rural fire brigades who help us be close to the ground when it comes to managing fire trails, identifying risks that might come up, and those relationships with the local rural fire brigades will remain paramount to us actually keeping the broader suburban area of the Gold Coast safe from fire if it ever kind of comes from the west into the east. And I think whilst this is, as Councillor Vorster has said, not the gold standard, we've come up with the best possible alternative, and we will continue to rely on those rural fire brigades and particularly many volunteers in our city who get out there on a daily basis when tough times like that happen. And I know that they should feel appreciated for their contribution to making the broader city safe from bushfire.
Okay. Speaking against? No. Councillor Peter Young.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate in response to that the rural fire brigades aren't mentioned in the report, but I do certainly endorse the comments made about the council officers and the work that they've done. They've presented a really solid piece of work, very complicated, and there's lots of risk in this. I'm certainly grateful for the fact that officers were able to achieve a 12-month stay in the proceedings, enabling us to have an entire fire season or like a management season next year before the prior agreement terminated, and that's given us a huge degree of safety in the city, and this body of work, if properly implemented, will do likewise. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wilson, you want to close further?
Yes.
Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Unanimous. Any other items deal separately? Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I move that the remaining recommendations of the Lifestyle and Community Committee be adopted. Thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden. Sometimes it gets hard to get the double barrel out. Oh, dear. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carried. Right, thank you, Director. We're going to Waterways and Energy Committee. Councillor O'Neill.
Could we go to Councillor Hamill, Mr Mayor? He chaired the meeting.
Councillor Hamill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the report of the Waterways and Energy Committee meeting held on December 2nd, 2021, covered by recommendations 1 to 7, be received.
Seconder, Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Any items you want to deal separately, councillors? Councillor Hamill.
So we do it, Mr. Mayor. I would move that the remaining recommendations of the Water and Waste and Energy Committee be adopted.
Seconder, Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Thank you, Director. All right. What have we got here? We go to Economy, Tourism and Events. Councillor Castro.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the report of the Economy, Tourism and Events Committee meeting, which was held on Thursday, the 2nd of December 2021, covered by recommendations 1 to 3, and ask that they be received.
Seconder, Councillor Tozer. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Right, councillors, any items you want to deal separately? Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Actually, just both items. First one concerning 6.1. Councillors, I just again want to bring everyone's attention to the fact that my wife is employed by Bond University, who's a member of Study Gold Coast. I'm of the view that no conflict arises, but I just wanted to reventilate that in case anyone had any questions.
Yeah.
On,
Anyone want to push it further? Everyone knows all about it, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Rightio. Any other items apart from that one? Councillor Castro.
Move for adoption. Yes.
Seconder, Councillor Tozer.
Oh, you did say both items?
Yes.
You wanted to say something about the other
Yes.
items? Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I'll go. What's happened, Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, on the closed session item 7.1.
Yep.
I don't intend, and will seek to avoid naming the business, but if councillors can have regard to the, yeah, if we can move into close, Mr Mayor, just very briefly. I just
sure.
need to seek some.
Move to close, seconder. Councillor Lacastra, confidential, is it?
Well, it does relate to the city's budget, Mr Mayor.
Okay, budget matter. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Streaming off. Right. Welcome back, viewers. Rightio. Could you let the gallery know, officer, that that it is now open? Okay. I guess, would you like to move the recommendation? Someone on this one, 7.1. Move, Councillor Tozer. Second, Councillor Castro. Anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry unanimous. Any items you want to deal separately? Councillor Castro?
Any recommendation, which was, I think, because, yeah, that was only for a question.
7.1.
Move the remaining recommendation of the Economy, Tourism and Events Committee be adopted. So as you say, Mr Mayor, 6.1.
Yep. Second to Councillor Tozer. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Unanimous. Thank you, Director. You're staying, aren't you? You're staying.
What is the yours?
Planning we're going to.
Perfect, I'll stay.
Just hang in there. Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move that the report of the Planning and Environment Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 1st of December 2021, covered by recommendations 1 to 10, be received.
Second to Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Conflict of interest declaration. There's just about every item there, is it? So, we might, Councillor Caldwell, we might just do one at a time, go down 6.1 at a time. What do you think?
I think that's probably the easiest way for us to keep track of it, Mr Mayor.
Okay. 6.1, declaration, anyone? No? You want to move committee recommendation, Councillor Caldwell?
Yeah, happy to move the committee
Seconder,
recommendation.
Councillor Gates. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carries. 6.1 is done. 6.2, material change of use. Declaration, anyone? Councillor Caldwell, move committee. Second to Councillor Gates. Anyone speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. 6.3. Any declaration? Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I need to make a conflict due to receipt of a donation. It's the same one as I've made for Lifestyle for Robina Projects Proprietary Limited, and I'm seeking to stay in the room. I've had no involvement with Robina Projects at any time since 2016, and I am unaware of their involvement in this application. However, I've been informed it's an associated entity of RPA Properties Proprietary Limited. So I'm making a declaration that I received $1,250 from Robina Projects on the 6th of the 9th, 2016, in an abundance of caution and seeking to remain in the room.
Was there a previous procedural motion that it's there? Let's have a look at it.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I moved
that one
at committee that was supported by Councillor O'Neill as the seconder.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill, second this one. Anyone speak against? Councillor Owen Jones.
So, Mr Mayor, I don't want to speak against, but I raised it at the committee and I'll raise it again today that I was previously a director of a company called Alexander Commercial Properties, which own this same property. I don't think I have a conflict of interest. The property was sold to the Robina Property Group after I was a director and after I was a councillor, but I have probably a better knowledge of the building itself than anybody else in the room. So, but I just wanted to bring it to my colleagues' attention.
All right. Well, we'll put this motion to the vote. All in favour, show of hands. Yeah, on the screen.
Great, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Put the motion to vote. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Bartolomson, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Could you put down Councillor Gates did not vote and Councillor Owen Jones did not vote? Okay, Councillor Vorster?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This matter was deferred to Council for consideration today, and I'd like to now move a new recommendation, and for want of a seconder, we'll speak to it. Reads as follows, Mr Mayor, that the application So that the application to issue a final development approval for an educational establishment be refused for reasons including council is not satisfied the proposed traffic arrangements can be implemented to mitigate serious impacts to the local road network, and that vulnerable road users may be exposed to significant risk in the proposed crossing over Laver Drive. And if I have a second, I'm happy to talk to it.
Seconder, Councillor Patterson. Okay, Councillor Forster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this development application proposes to repurpose an office block as a school catering to students from year 10, 11 and 12. The applicant is Silkwood, who have a presence already in the city and are hoping to provide a senior campus centrally on the Gold Coast and where else but Robina. Mr Mayor, this particular site is very challenging. The office block is located on a busy roundabout, which I would say is the second most notorious in my community. It is very close to Robina Parkway, which is a road that was highlighted in the State of the Network report, which we considered earlier on in today's council meeting. Mr Mayor, that road has 38,000 vehicle movements daily. Lots of traffic coming off of the M1, getting to Robina Town Centre and taking Laver Drive. Mr Mayor, during the discussions at committee, many councillors raised concerns, worried that placing a school full of vulnerable road users on a busy roundabout on a busy road, a 4-lane road at 60 kilometres an hour without suitable pedestrian facilities may put those users at risk. Mr Mayor, what was also of deep concern was that the site is so constrained and has so little on-street car parking available that any queuing on Laver Drive and East Hill Drive would likely have spillover effects in our community and our local road network by causing bottlenecks. Now, so pronounced were those worries and concerns, Mr Mayor, that city officers in their report proposed creating a whole new permit scheme that parents would be required to use in order to book a time to pick up their kids, lest they queue on Laver Drive and cause traffic to back up all the way into the M1. And Mr Mayor, I don't need to tell you that this is a sore point for our road network, and it was highlighted as one of the most troublesome intersections in our recently endorsed plan to progress the Robina Town Centre Gateway study. Mr Mayor, what was also of serious concern to me, and I think was shared by some other councillors as well, is that the door has been left open to the school to apply to Transport and Main Roads to declare a school zone on Laver Drive, a school zone at the mouth of the M1, reducing traffic to 40 kilometres an hour to address potential pedestrian safety risks. Now, Mr Mayor, why am I so concerned about this? Well, I'm concerned about it because of this. The council has just recently spent $355,000 constructing a signalised pedestrian crossing on Laver Drive to take vulnerable road users out of this very intersection. We've just spent that money to address a road safety concern, and now what we're faced with is a decision to potentially approve a development that would put those pedestrians right back into the roundabout. I cannot see how the pedestrian signalisation project could have been supported, right, while simultaneously a proposal to put pedestrians back into this intersection could be supported. Both projects cannot both be true and have merit. Mr Mayor, I worked with city officers after our committee meeting to try and develop a set of conditions that would try and mitigate as far as possible the impacts at this site. I really maintained an open and persuadable mind despite my very grave concerns, and had hoped to be in a position today to move an approval with conditions. However, having spoken to senior members of the council administration, they formed the view that it would be quite appropriate for a school zone to be declared on Laver Drive, and at that point the public interest cannot be satisfied with an approval. I hope my colleagues, each of which I'm sure have schools in their own divisions that cause gridlock and chaos in suburban streets, can reflect on their experience when they think about what could happen to our broader road network if a high school's approved at this location. I'm not anti-education by any stretch of the imagination. I want us to be in a position where we can support developments like this. But if city officers cannot find their way to support the views of elected representatives and the feedback that we have on the ground trying to deal with these issues, then we can't move forward. For those councillors, through you, Mr Mayor, who may think that we've got a need to provide educational opportunities and schools like this should be supported, I couldn't agree with you more. We've approved Arcadia College down the road. We continue to support Robina State High down the road. We've just approved a TAFE of 2,000 students down the road. There are many RTOs like the French Beauty Academy down the road, but concentrating too much traffic on Laver Drive would cause too many unanticipated issues on the road network and compound the very real costs we have dealing with traffic on our local road network. I hate to be doing this, but Mr Mayor, sometimes we've got to take a firm stand. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone speak against the motion? Question, Councillor Gates.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. It's a hypothetical question, but quite clearly Councillor Vorster has not been able to gain the support of the traffic engineers for the changes he wished to implement. But the wording of his motion, I want to ask a question through you to the City Solicitor, that if this application gained support today, does the fact that we've highlighted the possible exposure to significant risk, does that place us in a vulnerable position should there ultimately be an incident at the location? And noting that we've highlighted we're aware of the particular concern, if an approval were granted, is that a problem?
Solicitor?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't think it is. Councillor Vorster is representing a view of his community and a view that he has about an issue that he believes occurs there. So I don't have any concerns with Council approving the development application and that proposed amended recommendation being recorded.
Councillor Peter Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Late yesterday we received a memo from Mick Moran, and it referred to a discussion that had been held between council officers and Councillor Forster, and it recommended a series of altered recommendations that we should consider today. So I'm just wondering about giving ourselves the best opportunity to defend the proposed recommendation or the motion. If we've received this information and we haven't given it consideration today, I just wonder if that makes us a little bit vulnerable. And I'll just say at this point, if I might, I don't have a great sympathy for this proposal at Robina, and I'm more sympathetic to Councillor Forster's recommendation before us. Silkwood does have a presence in the back of Nerang, and it's been a very problematic presence with regard to traffic. There was an outstanding complaint being dealt with in regard to development conditions not being met in regards to traffic management and car parking in particular. So I don't have a lot of sympathy, but I'm concerned about the robustness of this us supporting this motion, given the information that we were provided yesterday. Thank
So,
you.
Councillor, you all got that email? So I think it was.
Yes.
All right. Okay. No worries.
Anyone did not got
All right. Anyone else want to speak against? For this motion? Yeah. Councillor Corwell?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. And look, I must give credit to Councillor Vorster as the local councillor for leading the charge on this, on interrogating this particular application. And I think it became very apparent to all of us at committee that there was serious and real concerns about the location of 180 year 10, 11 and 12 students in this location, in a building that was designed as an office, not fit for purpose, and on a very busy higher order road. Now, what the planning provisions are within Robina essentially say that an educational facility in this particular location should be approved subject to conditions. Now, I think the basis of my decision and applying thought to this matter is that I cannot satisfy myself that we can condition this particular application in order to make it safe and palatable and actually a development that's going to be welcomed into the area. And if anyone has a cursory glance at the officer's report, whilst it concludes that they've been satisfied with a number of matters, things like asking parents to identify what time they would pick up their child, and I might say based on an estimated drop-off window of things like 90 seconds in the morning or 120 seconds in the afternoon, there is no margin for error. And it is only going to take the smallest of little incremental changes in these very tight windows, and we are literally going to be putting cars into an extremely precarious position on a higher order road, let alone the additional pedestrian, cyclist movements generated from the development, as well as the nearby residents. So I think we voted in relation to another development last round where, again, regrettably, I couldn't be satisfied that we could actually reach conditions of approval in council that would lead to an approval. And in this particular instance, again, I find it very difficult to cast my mind to finding a set of conditions that would adequately deal with the application in a way that would make it able for me to be supportive of it. So on that basis, I support Councillor Vorster's motion.
I ask again, anyone want to speak against the motion? Councillor Vorster to close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mann. Ordinarily, I'd just sit down and be quiet, maybe not. But
Who are you kidding? Which meeting?
But Mr. Mayor, just in fairness to the applicant, who I know has made every attempt to finesse their application in response to city officer feedback, and in fairness to the city officers who tried to mitigate, as far as possible, the impacts of this development, I just want to underscore the fact that despite my concern and despite the concern of my colleagues, we did all maintain an open and persuadable mind. And up until the commencement of the meeting, I certainly intended to find my way to supporting the application. But I think, Mr. Mayor, as a council, we grapple daily with issues on our road network, whether it's congestion or road safety, and parents feel it most acutely in and around schools, because that's when tragedy can strike. We have invested a lot of money trying to make our CBDs as walkable and cycle-friendly as possible to reduce not only congestion but risks to safety, and I feel as though this application is a retrograde step. I think Councillor Caldwell makes an exceptional point. When we get to a situation where parents, by way of development approval, are entirely banned from parking or picking up kids on particular roads, we know that something smells odd and off. And my very real concern is that if the conditions are so severe to deal with these parking and traffic issues, they become development compliance matters, then how are we equipped to actually enforce them? You know, it may be impossible. And at that point, as Councillor Caldwell, I think, talked to, the basis of an approval breaks down. So we can't approve with conditions if, in our view, the conditions are unworkable to support an approval. And on that basis, and very regretfully, Mr Mayor, I can't find my way to supporting this today. Thank you.
Okay, councillor, debate's closed. We're voting on this motion in front of you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carried unanimous. Right, 6.4, councillor, declaration, councillor Gates.
Does
Okay,
motion? I know it says unanimously, but thank you. And Mr Mayor,
and councillor Owen Jones as well.
so was that 6.4?
No, 6.4 we're doing now.
Okay, I'll sit down.
Councillor Caldwell.
I don't think there's any on 6.4, Mr Mayor, so I'm happy to move that.
Yeah, move. Seconder. Councillor Gates. Anyone speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried. 6.5, declarations.
I made a declaration at committee due to receipt of a donation from a consultant over the Oxenford Quarry development application, and I'll be leaving the room and not participating.
Okay. Any other declaration? Councillor Peter Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got two declarations in regard to this matter. The first is in relation to my property. We'll see what comes up first. Okay, Mr and Mrs Spain. I'm a personal friend of Mr and Mrs Spain, and Mr Spain provided legal representation to me early in 2017. Mrs Spain provided a financial donation to my 2016 campaign. Their interest is that they own a property in close proximity to the quarry, and at least Mrs Spain has certainly been vocal in her opposition to the extension of life of the quarry. About this particular matter, I have not discussed with Mrs Spain or Mr Spain, and I'm seeking council's consent to participate in the meeting and the voting on the matter, because that conflict is overwhelmed by the fact that I represent the community that abuts or is very in close proximity to the quarry boundary. The Division 5 boundary is very close by, Mr Mayor, and some of those residents have certainly expressed their concerns over a period of time.
Okay, Councillor Caldwell, can you recall what happened in the committee on this one? Is that the recommendation on the screen?
We on both instances of Councillor Young's, we moved that he continue on, and I think Councillor O'Neill moved a motion, which is on page 7 of the report on this one.
So, all right, procedural motion. Move, anyone on the screen there? Move, Councillor Tozer, seconder. Councillor Hamill. All right. Anyone speak against the motion? Councillor Owen Jones.
Mr Mayor, I'm not going to speak against it, but I've previously made a declaration in regards to the quarry, and so I won't be voting in this. There was some discussion about whether or not it's a different matter or not, but I won't be making a further declaration, and I won't be voting in this regards.
Okay. Anyone else will speak against? Okay. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Ballumson, Councillor Cashel, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
All right, so Councillor Gates, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Owen Jones did not vote. Motion carried. Councillor Peter Young.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. My second declaration is in relation to the property that I live at and in about 600 years will own. Mr Mayor, my declaration is that Newcrush are the owners of the Oxenford Quarry and have submitted this application to Council to extend the duration of their operations for a period of 2 years. The property that I own under mortgage and where I live is at the closest point within 700 metres of the existing proposed expanded quarry. My house is approximately 1.1 kilometres from the quarry and is impacted from time to time by the effects of blasting undertaken through air shock and ground vibration. I'm the co-mortgagee on the property, and neither my property or the quarry are in Division 5. Mr Mayor, I'm seeking permission to participate in making a decision about the matter. I've lived at the property for 27 years and I've experienced throughout that entire period the impact of blasting operations. I've acquired material from the quarry and have had a reasonable relationship.
You've made declaration on this matter
Yes.
before?
Yes, Mr Mayor. And
Just let me ask the solicitor, if that declaration's been made in before, do we take it as read if the decision was voted back then on the same matter to stay in a room? Can we take it as, or do we got to vote again?
Through you, Mr Mayor, this is actually, it is a separate matter, and that's
Is it?
because it's an extension application. Previously, we've dealt with the development application, so I think it is
Right.
appropriate.
All right, okay, in that case, continue.
I'll try to be brief. Mr Mayor, despite that conflict, I believe that my participation in the vote and discussion on the matter is in the public interest because I have a fair and informed and balanced opinion and position about
The
their
procedural
operations.
motion
Thanks.
in front of you, councillors, any mover? Councillor Pauline Young, seconder. Councillor Tozer, anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you, all in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Barton-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Okay, and against? Well, Councillor Young, Councillor Gates and Councillor Jones did not vote. Motion carried. Councillor Caldwell.
Mr Mayor, thanks. At committee, Councillor Owen Jones's position, I think, had been clarified by the city solicitor, and he spoke to that as to why he wasn't then remaking his declaration. So I don't know.
So that decision still, that advice still stand? Councillor Owen Jones?
It was in regards to the earlier matter, in regards to the refusal. There were several allegations made against myself and my family in regards to my wife's employment, in regards to how I intended to vote or not vote in regards to the refusal. And I considered those all to be part of the original matter. I just didn't want to vote in today's matter. So I can't for the life of me see how I have a conflict that needs to be restated in regards to that earlier matter. And I think what I had said at the committee was when the refusal was discussed, the solicitor didn't believe that I needed to make those declarations again.
The advice stands?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Rightio, Councillor Owen Jones.
Mr Mayor, if I can have a seconder, I'll speak to the motion.
Second, Councillor Peter Young.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this was discussed at some length at committee. I will recover some of that ground just to provide some additional information to the broader community. Very, very broadly, the matter is now subject to, the earlier refusal is now subject to an appeal. The current operations are governed by a much earlier rezoning agreement. Because there is now an appeal on foot, the city has a responsibility in part to be a model litigant. We need to make good decisions and not bad decisions. And one of the things that we have been asked to consider is an extension of time to the original rezoning agreement in order to provide a period of time for the most recent refusal to be dealt with. The refusal that is being dealt with is part of the statutory process. So the city, through a non-statutory process, provided a 5-year extension of time to the original rezoning agreement. And there was correspondence which suggested that they wouldn't be able to continue without a statutory application. That application was made during that 5-year period, and the current appeal forms part of that statutory process. It's always been a complex matter, and it's not getting any easier. This is part of the moves that we need to make in regards to both doing the right thing in regards to the appeal, and also acknowledging the fact that there's an existing operation on foot. I don't think it was ever going to be the case that an appeal would not be lodged, and if an appeal had not been lodged, then the February 2022 date would have been off use. Given the fact that there's now an appeal and we've got advice from our solicitors that that is something that might take up to 2 years to work its way through the court system, it's seen as being a reasonable request for a 2-year extension. And then this recommendation, which is a slight altering of the original officer's recommendation, also anticipates that maybe in 2 years' time, if the legal process hasn't come to a conclusion, that there may be the need for a further period of time. At committee, Mr Mayor, we altered or suggested the altering of the officer's recommendation to include an A and a B, which was to restrict blasting to no more than 13 times per annum unless otherwise approved in writing by the Chief Executive Officer. And that reflects at least the last 8 to 10 years of operations at the quarry in regards to their blasting. I think the intent isn't to necessarily stop them carrying out their existing activity whilst the appeal is on foot, but by saying 13 times per annum, that is the only opportunity we have because the existing environmental authority issued by the Department of Environment and Science is the instrument by which blasting is regulated, and it is a bit open-ended at the moment. They can now blast, I think, from memory, 5.5 days a week under that agreement. So whilst the applicant may not necessarily like the suggestion of 13 times per annum, it does at least provide status quo, and it doesn't allow them to accelerate blasting during the appeal period if they have an anticipation that they may not be successful during the appeal period and want to get a body of blasting done. And then, Mr Mayor, the B was providing 24 hours notice of blasting to the community, and the applicant has been kind enough this morning to send an email to residents of Oxenford advising them at 7:30 this morning that there will be a blast at 11 o'clock today. So it's probably happened, Mr Mayor, but that's a big challenge for the community, and they don't like receiving short notice of blasting. And that's because people want to be able to make sure that their domestic animals are looked after. They want to make sure if they've got laundry on the line that it doesn't get impacted by dust, and they just want to know when a blast is going to happen rather than hear about it in the morning. So in part, today is actually a classic example of why B would make sense, because we come to today's meeting with a blast that's already happened whilst we've been here in the chambers, Mr Mayor. So the 24 hours notice is also something that the applicant had written to all of the councillors prior to the refusal, offering as part of a communication upgrade on what they do at the moment. So my understanding from a correspondence that's been received by Mr Moran is that the applicant, whilst not happy with A and B, understands that in good faith that it's something that they can live with. And then finally, Mr Mayor, we added 3, which is the applicant commence in good faith negotiations with DES in relation to the rehabilitation of the site. And Councillor Vorster, you may recall at the first round that this came to committee, you had some concerns in regards to the future rehabilitation of the site, and they were well founded, because we have correspondence from DES saying that if we reject it and it's still operating under the existing rezoning agreement from 1992, they may have some concerns as to how they can actually enforce or carry out rehabilitation of the site should the appeal to the council's refusal decision not be successful by the applicant and rehabilitation be required. So we can't make the applicant do anything, Mr Mayor, but in regards to rehabilitation, but in the correspondence from DES, they used words along the lines that they would like us to bear that in mind when making a decision today. So 3 is about pointing the applicant in the direction of the DES to start that conversation, and my understanding from Mr Moran is that's something that they are also prepared to do. So whilst the community may not like the idea that we are required, effectively, if we want to be a model litigant, we're required to do the right thing in regards to an extension of time, that's what we have to do, Mr Mayor. So sometimes in our role we have to make decisions that people don't like, and I can assure you, Mr Mayor, this is one of them. But if we, in my view, if we were to be successful in regards to defending the refusal, what we shouldn't do is start with a bad decision in regards to not allowing the operations to carry on during that appeal process, because if we refused it today, what would inevitably be the result is that the applicant would, we would find ourselves in the Supreme Court. The judge would most likely say, is there an appeal on foot? Yes, there is, and we would have a requirement to be reasonable, Mr Mayor. So I think that it's in the best interests of the long game and the main game in regards to the refusal to do the right thing in regards to being a model litigant, regardless of how that may be received by the local community, who may have been under the impression that the February date was going to be it if there was an appeal lodged. And I think that's where we are today. So in conclusion, off the opening statement, Mr Mayor, ultimately it's a complex planning matter which is now going to turn into a complex legal matter, and we need to make sure that we make the right steps, not the wrong steps at this point in time, Mr Mayor.
Okay. All right, councillors, anyone speak against the motion? Councillor Owen Jones, you want to close? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carried, unanimous. Yeah, Councillor Peter Young voted in the positive. All right, could you recall Councillor Gates? So we're now up to 6.6.
So I think, Mr Mayor, Councillor Gates has another declaration when she returns.
Okay. Declaration for 6.6, Councillor Gates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a council proposal for the Oxenford investigation area, and the council has appointed 2 consultants to provide information. I've made the declarations at committee, they're on the screen. One from 2008, which I guess we'll deal with first since it's on the screen, from Morton Urban Solutions. I'm seeking permission to participate in the decision due to the strategic nature of the project and the length of time that has elapsed, being 13 years.
All right. So the procedural motion in bold there on the bottom. Yep. Procedural motion. Someone like to move that? Councillor Castro. Second, Councillor Peter Young. Yeah. Anyone want to speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Yes, Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Barr-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill. Against?
Councillor Gates did not vote. Motion carried. Same procedural motion. Who voted? Councillor Castro. Second, Councillor Pauline Young. Anyone speak against? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Peter Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Barr-Lumsden, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Vorster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill. Against?
Motion carried. Councillor Gates did not vote. Councillor Owen Jones. Moved. Councillor Owen Jones. Committee recommendation, second by Councillor Peter Young.
And Mr Mayor, if I could just ask through you to the Director, there were some minor changes that were suggested during the committee meeting. I'm assuming that they have been hoovered up.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Owen Jones, they have, and we'll ensure that they go through.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this is the second Oxenford item today, and it's in regards to the ongoing Oxenford investigation area. There is nothing, in my view, that is startlingly different to earlier discussions in regards to the direction that we're heading. But what we have done in particular is made sure that as this goes out to the next round of community consultation, that we are looking at the variously differently affected stakeholder groups. So there is a small group of about 90 landowners in the first stage, then the broader group, which is probably another 120 landowners, and then the frame area of Oxenford. So all three groups will be dealt with slightly differently, but hopefully everybody's voice will be heard as part of this process, Mr Mayor.
Okay. I want to speak against the motion. Councillor Jones, you're closed. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, carry, unanimous, and Councillor Gate voting positive. We go to 6.7. Councillor Gates, can you declare?
To consultants to provide information. The first one is RPS Planning, who provided $675 to me in 2011, and I'm seeking to stay in the room due to the strategic nature of the project.
So there's a similar procedural motion on the screen, I think. Move Councillor Pauline Young. Seconder, Councillor Caldwell. Anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Petty Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Barr-Lumpson, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Forster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Okay, against? Motion carried. Councillor Gates did not vote. Anything else?
The Parkwood investigation area was a receipt of donation from Place Design, who are consultants appointed by council. And the figures are there, Mr Mayor, and I'm seeking to remain in the room due to the strategic nature of the decision.
Okay, is that similar procedural motion can't we use from previous? There it is on the screen. Move Councillor Pauline Young. Seconder, Councillor Peter Young.
I think I'm done.
And anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands.
Councillor Tate, Councillor Hamill, Councillor Caldwell, Councillor Petty Young, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Barr-Lumpson, Councillor Castro, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Forster, Councillor Pauline Young, Councillor McDonald and Councillor O'Neill.
Against? Motion carried. Councillor Owen Jones, Councillor Gates did not vote. Anyone else didn't vote? Motion carried. Any other declaration on this item? No? Someone want to move? Councillor Barr-Lumpson?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I've just got two questions, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. One was just for the public consultation. In that, attachment 2 will be included with that, but will there be clear for the people having part in that consultation what the built forms could look like in scenario 1 and 2?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, yes, it will be.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And then my last question, Mr Mayor, through you, was from our previous resolution, point 4, that a plan be prepared for koala fauna crossings on Napa Road. I'm just curious as to how that plan will progress, because I didn't see any mention of it in this report.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, if I can take that on notice, and I'm happy to provide a briefing to you.
Okay. I just asked that, Mr Mayor, because the last decade of figures we've got for animal vehicle strikes in this area, particularly on Napa Road, there's probably about 4 key spots, and the city has done a great job in addressing most of them through fauna fencing and whatnot, but the one in this investigation area at the corner of Arundel Drive is not being addressed, and it would be good if we could progress with that plan. Thank you.
Are you still happy to move the motion? Or should I go to Councillor Caldwell?
I think if we could either include somewhere that the plan's going to progress, otherwise I'd prefer not to move the motion.
Okay, Councillor Caldwell moved the motion. Seconder, Councillor Gates. Anyone speak against the motion? Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Carry, unanimous. Could you put down Councillor Gates and Councillor Gates in the positive? We good with that? Any?
The mover on the motion just needs to be tweaked on the.
Oh, is it? Okay. Can you go back to the mover?
So it was, yeah, that's correct.
We good?
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Mr Mayor, that I think, concludes the matters that had conflict of interests, unless there's others that hadn't been raised at committee.
All right.
In which event, I think there's only 3 remaining matters, and we can probably hoover them up with the final motion, if you're ready.
Anyone wants to talk about something else? Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move that the remaining recommendations of the Planning and Environment Committee be adopted.
Seconder, Councillor Peter Young. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Rightio. You're not going to stick around for this one? We're going to Governance, Administration and Finance. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the report of the Governance, Administration and Finance Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 1st of December 2021, covered by recommendations 1 to 11.
Seconder, Councillor Patterson. Put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. Right. Any items you want to deal separately? Councillor Vorster.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick question on 6.4, if I could.
6.4, acceptable request, policy and guidelines.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. My question through you to Kath, I suppose, or whoever you want to direct it to.
Just give it to me, and maybe I can answer it straight away.
Please, Mr Mayor, it'd be great. Mr Mayor, my question is, when councillors make requests for advice or information, can those requests for advice and information be made through the councillor requests system that we use in our offices to case manage constituent issues, or must they be provided through email under the proposed policy?
Okay. You want to take it, Joe?
I understand it can be in that system. I'll just check with Julie, but I can't see any reason why not. Is that correct, Julie?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The way the policy is written at the moment is it's through emails. The reason why we couldn't put it through SAP or the council request system through Pathway is because we have to allocate it to the responsible officer on the contact list, and Pathway and SAP both don't go to those dedicated officers within the policy. So what we can do is you can put the council request for action through the Pathway and SAP, and the request for information and advice comes in through emails.
Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Could I ask then, how was it that a draft earlier version of the policy included the ability to send them through the the councillor request system?
So originally we, through you, Mr Mayor, sorry, originally we had, through the SAP and through the Pathway system, we had triggered that when you also ask for advice or information in conjunction with the request for action, that could be triggered back. However, when we went in to look at it further to that being assigned to the right person, that they would be assigned to two different people. So to simplify the version, the process, we ensured the request for advice and information go back through email.
Councillor Vorster.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Through you to all of my colleagues, please listen carefully. Mr Mayor, through you to the responsible officer or to yourself directly. If a constituent contacts me in my capacity as their local representative about an issue, and I intend to be the person who provides them with a response because they have contacted me and I'm their representative. If I intend to go back to that constituent because they have contacted me, under the policy and under the law, but let's focus on the policy for a moment, does that constitute a request for advice or information?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we looked into that process, and if you're asking for an action and to go back to the constituent, then no, it wouldn't be, because what you're actually doing is saying putting in a request for action to have a pothole filled on a road, you're actually asking for that action to happen. So within the council request system through Pathway and through SAP, they need to reply to you within that 10 days, with this already in that process, to let you know what's happening with that pothole action. So that process in itself will actually give you the answers that you need. However, if you're not satisfied with the response that you get within that 10 days, you can actually trigger this policy for advice or information, go back to the CRO or the more senior officer to ask for more information, what's happening with that work order.
So, thanks, Mr. Mann. Julie, I totally appreciate what you're saying, but I don't think that from a representative's point of view, I don't think the answer illuminates my concern. So I'm going to maybe ask a different question, not to be belligerent or argumentative, but only to make sure that we all understand how this policy will change the way we deal with constituents, to my reading of it. Mr. Mayor, through you to Julie. Let's say it's not a pothole. Let's say a constituent contacts me and says, look, councillor, I've got some overhanging branches from the public road reserve over my property. It's causing me some issues. Can you get back to me with whether council will be able to trim back those branches and what plans are in place to maintain that reserve? Presently, I would think that raising a request through our CR system would be the way to go about that. But I can't help but feel, reading the policy, that that really becomes a request for information or advice, because it's not a maintenance issue. It's a constituent raising a concern about the maintenance of a pocket of their community and wanting to know what arrangements are in place to manage that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's two options there for you. The first option is within the policy with the second round of changes, we allowed for your staff to go directly to the administration. So if they're answering questions back to the community, they can contact the organisation at any time for advice on that tree through the council request system and through emails and through other channels. So that was removed from the policy to make sure that's easy for the staff within your offices to go to the administration, get the answer required. The second option is if you did put that through Pathway or through SAP, which is the existing council request system, because it is an action, it's still an action, looking at the tree, sending out officers, is still a service request. And remember, we said that anything that's an action or a service request still sits outside this policy, and it's still got those service request timelines of the 10 days. So you will still get that service request through the council request system as a service.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know we've got a finished line that we're aiming for today, so I really appreciate your indulgence here, because you may recall, Mr. Mayor, this policy was kicked back after it came through council in its first incarnation because of some concerns, and I just want to make sure it's right. So, Mr. Mayor, through you to Julie, I just want to clarify that if a constituent contacts me about an issue in the area that I look after, and the Mayor looks after the area as well, because everyone has two representatives. As a local representative, it's my view, if they've contacted me, they deserve to hear from the person who's accountable, which is me. So the first option, which you've presented to us today through the policy, to leave it to my staff to get back to the constituent and not me, I actually don't find that a workable outcome, because I would be very disappointed if the person that I vote for is not the person who gets back to me on an issue. I think that breaks down representative politics. So option one, I can't actually say is a genuine option to me, personally. Just on the suggestion, though, that this could be, that scenario I painted could be considered a service request, I have trouble reconciling in the policy, because while an issue may be prompted by the overhanging of branches, what I'm really interested in is the cause of the problem to begin with. And at that point, I want an explanation. I want to understand what the service standards are internally in the council, so that I can go back to my constituent and explain why it is this problem originated and what actions may be taken by council moving forward to ensure it doesn't happen again. It's reputational management and it's good customer service. So I just need to hear it I need to hear this explicitly, and I need it possibly confirmed by the city solicitor as well, that I'm free in the CR system to ask all manner of questions about the root cause of a problem and how we might respond to addressing that root cause to the problem, if I at least make a service request as well, and that I won't be pinged for misconduct or whatever it is because I've asked for additional information over and above highlighting a maintenance concern.
Well, is there additional work needs to be tweaked on this but to satisfy Councillor Vorster? Should we do a procedural motion to the next round? Councillor Gates?
I believe we should, because I'm really concerned at what Councillor Vorster has raised today, and I have to admit I wasn't aware that there was a distinction between asking for information and advice. Most of the requests that I issue through the customer request system at the end say I would appreciate your considered advice, because we don't know what the regulations are in relation to some of the requests that come forward. So happy to...
I think let's move a procedural motion that goes back to the next round of GAF.
So, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to do that, but if we're going to move it for a second procedural motion, I'd suggest that maybe Councillor Vorster, if he could attend the Governance Committee, it would assist so that we don't have to defer it for a fourth time.
So, thank you, Mr Mayor. So just on that, could Councillor Owen Jones just remind me which day the committee was on this round?
No, don't worry about that now.
No, yeah, okay.
No,
I'm not always...
We're looking to either we vote on this. All I'm saying is that I move as a procedural motion, right? That we go to the next round. But I take your comment on board and just leave it there. That the matters be referred to the next governance administration. I got a seconder from Councillor Owen Jones.
Sorry, may I make a...
Mr Mayor, it was just mentioned that originally there was a conversation about workshopping this, and I'm wondering, I know it's going back a lot, but if there are these concerns, whether rather than it coming to committee meeting, if we just actually get these concerns around a table and then it get drafted properly?
I think this procedural motion will satisfy that. Anyone who's concerned, go to the next round consider, and thank you for your indulgence having another look at that, Councillor Owen Jones. So it's a procedural motion that we go, it's sent back. All right. I don't know all about the other points there. I just want the procedural motion to go back to the next round. That's all. And so the procedural motion overrides any other motion. Councillor Gates?
Mr Mayor, could I very quickly suggest that we need one method of progressing our requests. I don't know that the officers appreciate how very busy our officers are and how many requests we get a day, and that we're often in meetings and a decision needs to be made, whether it's an email or a CR. It would be very helpful if we had one uniform way of progressing customer requests to our officers where we want to respond.
Well, Cathy can take that on board. All right. Okay. Anyone want to speak against this motion? That means we've got to deal with it now. I put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carried. 6 point. We're up to any other items, councillors? Councillor Patterson.
8.1, Mr Mayor.
8.1. Okay.
I'd like to move the committee recommendation with a minor amendment.
Okay.
Which I believe the information may be there. If not, it is that a report be brought back to the February 2022 Governance, Administration and Finance Committee meeting regarding the cost of resources to reinstate live streaming of council committee meetings.
All right, so it comes back to the...
Governance Committee meeting.
Yep, sure. Seconder, Councillor Gates.
Couldn't find him, he was under the bus.
Yeah, that's where he was. Arms and legs, don't.
We got it?
Yeah.
Seconder, just seconder, Councillor Gates. You happy with that on the screen, Councillor Patterson? Question, Councillor Tozer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It actually seems a fairly simple report, given it's trying to encompass a cost. Is it something that Mr McCabe or the CEO or perhaps the manager actually knows the answer to, even on the floor of council? We don't know how much live streaming cost when we were doing it.
It's about resourcing and someone sitting there. So I think to look at this, I really need to look at the whole resourcing model in that area, so we come up with the best option.
It's no time of the essence.
No, of course. I just thought maybe they already knew because we only just stopped doing it. So, yeah.
Okay, we good? Yes, thank you. Okay, put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? It's unanimous. Do you want a division? Unanimous. Okay. Any other items? We're in for a report.
Paralysis by analysis is how Councillor Critchlow would have said. I move the remaining recommendations of the Governance, Administration and Finance Committee be adopted.
Seconder, Councillor Patterson, any good? Okay, put the motion to you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item 12, consideration notice of motion. I've got none in front of me. So we'll go to 13, question on notice. Mr CEO, you got any there? He's got none. So we move on to presentation of petition. Councillor Caldwell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, in more ways than one.
Gee,
I am in receipt of an extremely odd document, which is essentially a gathering of sort of two-page pieces of correspondence that came through to a generic council email address, which talks in very, very broad terms about some planning concerns that are held. Now, I take a different view as to whether or not this is actually in the true spirit of a petition. It's actually a collection of letters, and I think a better course of action, rather than having the officers run off on some chase, wild goose chase, trying to answer all of this, I think it's probably better if we just deal with it as a piece of correspondence rather than have them...
So your motion is...
So my motion is that we not accept the petition.
Okay. Seconder? Councillor Gates, put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against?
Yeah. Just seeing that on the screen, it's the first time I've been alerted to the fact that it's from the Community Alliance.
This is for declaration, is it?
Yes. So I didn't vote just then, and I'm making a declaration to you that I'm a member of the Gold Coast Environment Council, which is a subsidiary or whatever member of the Community Alliance. So I've got no knowledge of this petition, letter, whatever it may be, and I've had no discussions with the Community Alliance or with Gecko about it, and the decision's already been taken, but I just needed to make that declaration.
Okay, I think I'll take the vote again. You can abstain from the vote. Councillors, I put this motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. And please record abstain. Councillor Peter Young, abstain. Do I put you down as abstain or not vote? Abstain. Councillor Peter Young, motion carried. All good. General business. We got any general business? No? Okay. Other businesses too there. Incoming sponsorship agreement, 16.1. Moved? Okay, good. Seconder? I'll second it then. It's an odd one that it was such a successful one. We've got to give the decision to go grab the money or grab the upside of it. All good. All in favour, show of hands. Against? Motion carried. 16.2, I hope you got the letter. I refer to the correspondence from Honourable Karen Andrews, Honourable Stuart Roberts, Angie Bell, MPs in the city, the 3 federal MPs. It's written to our acting mayor, Councillor Gates, at the time. You've seen the correspondence, I trust. If anyone hasn't seen it, let me know. And the preamble, we can speak on that, but I move the motion that the council's decision to discontinue membership of Councillor Mayor Parliament be reaffirmed. And item 2, that the mayor write to local federal MPs, the 3 mentioned, advising of council's decision, reminding them that other city deals has been concluded with city much smaller than the Gold Coast, and asking for their support on behalf of residents of the Gold Coast. Just a quick there, the Gold Coast city or region is 2.5% of population of all of Australia. And as even today, the literal rainforest was funded by federal government and to us. So that's another city deal ticked. The very first city deal that was ever done in the country was Light Rail Stage 1, and where all three tiers of government came in to do a city deal. And it wasn't called a city deal at the time, and but that's what it is. It paves the way for the whole country to see that you could do a major project from all 3 tiers of government. My comment is a little bit reserved in that I'm astounded that local federal MPs would back the ideas of other mayors outside the city than councillors' decision to withdraw from councillor mayors. And I cite that I'd never seen any of those 3 person attended councillor mayors, so I don't know where they got their information from. And last but not least, I recall that I can't remember what year, it might have been 2017, but years doesn't matter. We were working on a city deal, and literally, Councillor Mayor heard about it. We went and saw City Deal Minister Angus Taylor, flew down there with Deputy Premier Jackie Tradd, myself, and Darren Scott, and it was all about the city deal. Before you know it, Councillor Mayor goes, "Oh, we can make it a regional deal," and the whole thing didn't happen. So, and all I could say to everyone of you here is that over the years, we have done city deals with federal and state joint funding, and it's worked well. And I don't recall one city deal that's been done by councillor mayors, not one. So I don't see the point of paying $330,000 or thereabouts to rejoin councillor mayors. I think our decision was unanimous at the time. I can't recall exactly, but you know, look, councillors, I can go into it even deeper on the this letter, but I'd rather not soil relationship with federal government, local minister. But all I say is that this motion I put to you is that we're on the right course, and we will get other deals. Don't have to call it city deals, but state funding, federal funding. You know, as we march towards the Olympic 2032, I have no doubt that the Gold Coast will be part of the infrastructure bill, because we're the fastest growing. There's half-finished major infrastructure, heavy rail to the airport, light rail, stage 4, and other major projects. Matter of fact, all those things, I wouldn't say to you that I need to go, come to you and say, hey, I need to go back on board of the council of mayors to get those items on the council of mayors list. And anyway, the other person who can speak about it a bit more is Councillor Gates, who's been to Councillor Mayors. But if you have a different opinion, I would welcome it. If you have the same opinion and don't want to say anything, that's fine too. Anyway, I'll just leave it to you, Councillor Owen Jones.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think you just said that we've got 2.5% of the population. Is that right?
Yeah.
The federal guys, and there's 5 of them that represent the Gold Coast. The most recent round of the COVID funding that we received for roads, the acting CEO has told us in the last 24 hours that our share of that was 1.18% of the total allocation. So we got half of the funding that we maybe should have been eligible for in the context of a per capita basis. So that type of information, the 5 federal members may not be aware that we might be being shortchanged in those type of arrangements already. So pointing out to them that the more that they can work for the city and getting funds through those federal programs will benefit everybody, including the people that they represent here on the Gold Coast.
Yeah. Councillor Vorster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you are, I think, under the Local Government Act, the city's first citizen. You're our mayor. You're our lead negotiator, and how could I not defer to your judgment on this very important leadership question? Plainly, we haven't extracted as much as we've hoped, and I don't feel as though we've ever been materially assisted by the Council of Mayors. I've just taken the opportunity to see some of the projects that have been lauded by the Council of Mayors as kind of wins, particularly those connected with the so-called city deal, and there's not much in it for us. So yeah, there is a value question. Where I'm probably going to perhaps draw your ire, or the ire of Councillor Gates, is that when I've had a read of the document that was executed between former Minister Tudge, Jackie Trad, former Deputy Premier Jackie Trad, who we now welcome wholeheartedly to the Hodder Board, and former Lord Mayor Graham Quirk, the document that was executed, that statement of intent, makes very clear that negotiations will only happen through the Council of Mayors. We're not party to it. But what was most interesting, Mr. Mayor, when I had a look at that statement of intent, as well as the federal government's own website concerning the city deal, is that negotiations were already supposed to have been completed. This thing was signed off in 2019, and it was supposed to be fully negotiated, and we should have been in a position of executing it. And it seems to have stalled. Mr. Mayor, and again, this is your motion, and I'm not saying this in any way to detract from your leadership on this at all, because I think there's been an absence on it in other fronts, and it's articulated in the recommendation. But given, effectively, in my view, that statement of intent has lapsed, stalled, I wonder whether our course of action should be writing back and saying this was signed in 2019. Since then, we've had the Olympic Games. Your city deal is probably not fit for purpose, as it was imagined. The priorities and the projects listed in your outline need to be rethought of in the Olympic Games frame, and attempt to re-enter into a fresh statement of intent that includes council representation directly as party to the negotiations outside of the Council of Mayors. I didn't volunteer this, Mr. Mayor, because I think it's a bad process, but it's a process that secured representation only through the Council of Mayors, and I think we need to take advantage of their largesse and inaction to make the case that it's no longer fit for purpose, and it needs to be restruck, and it needs to be your signature at the bottom of the paper. Okay, Mr. Mayor.
I'll put it to you this way. 2019, when we were doing that, the comment around the table of council mayors was this: why does the Gold Coast get everything and we don't? I'm quoting it verbatim. They feel that we've got it, and all the other South East Queensland Council hasn't. Now, I went, well, so what does that mean? Now, does it mean because we utilise the Commonwealth Games well, we prosecute our case well, or do we market, we go and see ministers and whoever it is on a one-on-one relationship? And for whatever reason, that is the mindset of the council and mayor. So for me to be at that table, I already got their mindset of going, well, we don't want to put your project near the top because you already got a shitload. I mean, a whole bunch. And so I don't see an upside. I'd rather back ourselves, our own connection, the whole 15 of us, and through our connection, and get crucial projects up. And officers done well too, from whether it's transport infrastructure, whether it's lifestyle. There are projects out there that we've been getting funding. Now, I don't want to highlight all the success there because I don't want to signal that we're doing great. But for the signatory to this letter to our acting mayor at the time, it doesn't look like they've done any investigation. And it's a bit like, somebody in someone's office drafted, Minister, can you co-sign that? And let's get the mayor back into Council of Mayors. Well, when I catch up with some of them, I just go, so tell me the reasoning behind it on one-on-one, and I will find out the reasoning behind that. It's just, under Constitution, federal government doesn't recognise the local government anyway. The money goes to the state and the state distribute. We are the product of the state government. In the Australian Constitution, there's not one word about local government. So because of that, because they don't recognise local government, well, what's this letter about? Don't they read their own constitution and things like that? But either way, I've checked, like, I'm issue-based, and you all know that. My issue is, well, I will catch up with all three and just go, what's that all about? And sort it out. But, I mean, initially when I got that, I just went, well, I don't want to go, I was disappointed, disheartened, sad, and all that because the number of support each individual or our city that support the Liberal government, members here, whether it be handing out donations or whatever it is, we all, as a city, we all really put the support out there, and 5 out of 5 federal MPs are conservative, and I thought loyalty worth both ways. And if there's a disappointment about wanting to that, pick up the phone would have been the best way of doing things instead of putting it in writing. And the only way I could deal with it is to bring to council, because it's a council decision. It's not Mayor Tom Tate's decision, and we're live streaming. So they wanted to highlight it. Well, here we are. So loyalty works both ways. Then one could be forgiven to go, well, they're kind of taking us for granted, us meaning Gold Coasters, and maybe the margin is too strong, and they just go, well, we act the way we act. But hey, I say to politicians of all standings, us included, never take our constituents for granted. I cite so many turnaround, and the last one that's memorable was the record-winning Premier Newman there, and 2.5 years later, the government was lost in devastating numbers. So don't take any constituent for granted. And, the political cycle, the next one is federal level. So, I'm trying to make politics out of it, but it's not a... I'll find out anyway. But Councillor Gates?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make the comment that for the councillors who are not aware how diverse the different local government areas are. And so the difficulty with, in my view, this is my personal view, the difficulty with the city deal as such is it's just a mix of different projects that are suitable or proposed by the respective areas. It's not like a Townsville Stadium, for example, which was a city deal, which is easy for everyone to get their head around and either support or not. But there's this whole list of projects, we haven't got one in there, but I can recall some conversations where we talked about the 32 Olympics and you know, a mission by the Council of Mayors to fight for a rapid transit link for the whole region. And that's the sort of thing that you would hope the federal government would listen to, and we could have a benefit across the entire southeast Queensland region. But that doesn't seem where they go, because everyone's wish list is unique to their own specific local government area, and it's hard to support that list of projects because they're not really the meat that we need for our region, which I believe is the purpose of the Council of Mayors.
Yeah. Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm not going to add to your recommendation, even though I think we could be supporting your push by skewering the city deal as no longer fit for purpose, because I don't think it is. But I just wondered whether you may be open with recommendation 2, and I'm just responding to your very valid point that we're in the lead up to an election, whether that piece of correspondence that you intend to send to MPs Karen Andrews, Stuart Robin and Angie Bell may also be copied to any locally based Queensland senators in the city, because, you know, I would expect in the lead up to March or May or an election, all local representatives will be looking for policies to take and inspiration, and who better to provide a little bit of leadership on this than local government. So that could be Senator Murray Watt, for example. I'm not sure if Senator Stoker's got a presence on the Gold Coast, but anyway. Locally based senators.
You're right. I will do that, and of course, Scott Balcock and Bert Van Batten, the giant killer. I call him that because he beat Peter Beattie, and you know they're not party to this. I will get on to both of those as well, but hey, let's not take it so like we'll reply seriously, but let's not be disheartened seriously with the 3 signatory to this. We'll work it through. We're bigger than that. The issue is, no, we don't want to spend 330,000 ratepayers' funds. And at yesterday's Future Forum, you know, I said that we got more deals done, and I said, and I mean it, that if anything, if they want me to attend the Council of Mayor, they should pay me to give them some good advice. And not being arrogant, but hey, that's the way I think. So that's my just saying there. But you know, so if they ring me, you know, it's $300 an hour. Anyhow, put the motion to you. All in favour, show of hands. Against, motion carry, unanimous. Mr. CEO, is there anything you? Well, I take the opportunity to wish all the viewers out there a very Merry Christmas from all of us. And stay safe and keep an eye on the COVID and, you know, but numbers and hotspots and all the like. And we all, as council, wish all our constituents' family healthy and well to the celebration of Christmas and the real true Christmas message of when the little Christ came to born. And New Year's celebration, and you know, look after your mates if you're out there having a few, and always have a designated driver. Sounds like a dad speaking here, but But I'm sorry about that. Just passing it on. So, councillors, as there's no other, the meeting's closed till next year.